I read somewhere in one of the things you wrote that learning happens best in relationships. And I had to write that down because that is so true, that when we connect with another person, that learning goes deeper.
And we know that about babies. We know that about babies. We always talk about that. We know that babies that don't have relationship don't learn. They don't thrive, right? They will actually be delayed by that lack of relationship in their development. Their development will be delayed. And yet we kind of forget about that, as kids enter an environment. And it doesn't mean that they can't have good relationships in a lot of different school environments. I mean, I think there are a lot of families now. Some are all homeschool. Some have kind of a mix. Some kids are in and out of traditional schools. They may be doing private school kinds of situations, or, I did a combination. My kids were homeschooled for a while and then went into high school. And I had a child that I really didn't homeschool much. And, I think that no matter what, our relationship, and we know this too with all the research, right? The kids who are having family dinners, the kids whose parents, follow their education. These are the kids that are thriving. So it does happen in relationship. And we need to remember that, though, about everything we do. Especially the things we're a little afraid of, because we get very hands-off with what we don't want to teach.
That is so true. I mean, I have to admit, I did the same thing with writing. It's like, oh, please just do that on your own. Because I am not equipped. I can teach you all the math I can teach you, but boy, I struggle with writing too. And so, It is interesting. When I was homeschooling, I thought to myself, the one thing I wanted, my fear, I wasn't afraid of language arts, obviously, but my fear was I wanted my kids to have passionate teachers. And I knew there were a few things I wasn't super passionate about. So I didn't feel very competent. I wasn't competent in music, and I didn't feel very competent about art. So I wasn't passionate because of my own sense of, ineptitude. So, and then it turned out, as much as I loved math, I wasn't super passionate about teaching math. So I really looked for those outside resources who were passionate. And that's one of the ways that Tracy and I first started working together. She was my children's art teacher all through their homeschool. So, and she's very passionate about illustrations for your book and other things. So that's very
she does watercolor. Right.
It's fun to find someone who compliments you, and I think our kids, when they find a friend like that too, to be able to build off of that as well.
Well, and I think we see that when we join up with families, that smaller group that we do things with, that the kind of learning that can happen in those environments, and not only parent to child, but someone else's parent to my child, was so powerful for me.
Yeah.
And I like to think with my students that I have that kind of relationship. And I believe now with working with parents that I'm trying to really support them and their learning and their relationship as going forward, as I'm teaching them. And I think that matters. They have to trust me. They have to know I care, and I do. And they have to know that it's not fake praise. I really am encouraging them. This is hard work.
Yeah. And you understand that. And I think that comes across when you really know the subject, but also the struggle. And we have to, as educators, even with our children, as well as adults that we're mentoring, show that, we're not perfect either. And I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely. There are so many stories to tell.
Oh, yes.
We don't like to start there. I will eventually tell them. I hate to start there.